Hey there, 100 Days of SEO. My name is John Doherty. I'm the founder and CEO of getcredo.com, veteran SEO and digital marketer, and you are watching 100 Days of SEO.
What's up, everybody? Hope you enjoyed that Denver intro. I'm laughing because I just recalled that when I wanted to confirm that John Doherty, our guest today on 100 Days of SEO Friends Friday, when I wanted to confirm that John was from Denver, I Googled John Denver and didn't realize that was not going to get me what I actually wanted. Oh, that was silly. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the Denver intro. Today we're talking to John Doherty. So he runs Credo. I want it in my brain, always call it Get Credo. Not that. That's the URL, getcredo.com. John is awesome, knows so much, and is passionate. The whole idea of Credo is helping link up businesses with reputable SEO partners. SEO is filled with so many scam artists and so many people that are consultants but have never actually done anything for themselves. People hire like Neil Patel, who's never ranked a site other than neilpatel.com, and it's like, for what? For what? They don't know the game. John knows the game well enough, not just to do it for himself and for clients, but also to understand and vet people on behalf of clients. I think it's a really cool business model. He's really crushing it with it. We're going to talk to John today about beginner SEO mistakes, advanced SEO mistakes, and everything in between. I can't wait to share this interview with you, so let's get into it. Man, thanks for joining us for 100 Days of SEO.
Brendan, my pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So a couple quick questions today. First question, and this is something I think is so important when it comes to SEO. We have so many tools. It can be such an overwhelming subject because there's so many ways to get the same results, right? There's like a million different tactics and strategies. When you look at a project, or look at achieving any sort of goal, whether that's ranking a brand new website or starting your own side project, or if you're doing client work or consulting, how do you think about and how do you conceptualize what to prioritize first? Is there a framework, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you actually hinted at my answer there in your question, actually, because what I always start with is, what's the goal? Why the heck are we even doing SEO in the first place? Right? So, and it depends on what the website is, it depends on the industry, it depends on the company, it depends on your point of contact, it depends on all of those sorts of things, right? If you're working with a client, if you're a consultant, if it's your own website, then it's, what resources do you have, internally to get it done? Are you technical and that you can do that? Or do you need to hire someone to do that? Do you have enough pages? Are you targeting your keywords? Are you building links? All of that stuff goes into it, but ultimately it comes back to, what's your goal? Are you going to, we're not just driving rankings and driving traffic to drive rankings and traffic. Unfortunately, in the SEO world, people do sell that. But really what we should be doing is, if you're a consultant, you should be selling results, right? Think about it. The way I think about it is, when I go into working with a client or working on, I think about it the same as working on my own websites, right? Where I'm not just driving traffic to drive traffic. If I'm going to put time, money, effort into these properties, I'm doing it to build a business, right? And ultimately I'm doing it to build revenue. So at the end of the day, it comes down to, what are the highest leverage things that we can do in order to drive this business forward? For some companies, it is traffic. They're an ad-supported business. For others, it's leads. For others, it's subscriptions or free trials or whatever it is. So you kind of need to understand the business itself and what drives the business, what are kind of the leading indicators, what are the ultimate indicators that lead to revenue. But really, when I think about it through that framework, especially in working with a client, then they're like, wait, you're not just talking about driving traffic or keywords or something like that. I'm like, right, that's a means to an end. And that instantly changes the conversation, and honestly changes what they're willing to pay you. They're willing to pay you more because you're actually talking about business, right? The director's like, I can get behind that. I can see I pay you this, and I'm, and over time we're going to make this if we can hit these, different, milestones along the way. It's like, there you go, right? So versus if you're just selling them traffic, they're like, I'll pay you I'll pay you $50 an hour, versus if you could tell me you're going to make me 100K, right? they might have no problem paying you $10,000, right? Or $15,000 or something like that because they're business people. So that's really where I start. When I start with a new client, I like to come in and say, like, what do I think are your biggest needs before I even pitch the work, right? Is it technical? Is it keyword research? Is it content? Is it, links, what have you? Is it conversions, right? And so looking at all of those things first before we start settling on what are the individual, like frameworks we need to work from, and then what are the strategies we're going to work on, and then what are the tactics we're going to work on within those strategies.
Nice. Do you ever feel like, I would imagine this is true in every type of marketing. Do you ever feel like you end up just becoming like there's some phase where you were just like a general business consultant? Like, I need to help you figure out how to run a business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually think about myself, and this came from my days distilled back in 2011 to 2013, where I actually think about myself as more of like an SEO or digital marketing management consultant. Because, honestly, there are people that are cheaper than me that can do better, like keyword research and that sort of stuff at this point. Just because I'm not like in it all day doing it. I'm running a business. But a lot of my work, honestly, with bigger companies, especially, is helping, from the director level on down, get buy-in from, their bigger bosses to actually get the budget to implement the things they need to implement to drive the business forward. And sometimes it starts from the bottom, right? If like a junior point of contact, you're going to do a lot of education, help them get buy-in from their boss, so their boss can get buy-in from their boss. And it's a lot of kind of learning to work across the levels of a business. So yeah, a lot of consulting becomes that, unless you're selling if you're selling SEO services, it doesn't become that, right? And you just like go off and you do your thing and send your monthly report. If you're a consultant and you're actually consulting with them and teaching them and helping them, make their business better, it definitely turns into that a lot.
Kind of changing gears, what are some of the mistakes you see a lot of people making? Let's focus maybe on beginners.
That's a great question. So personal mistakes that I made, I think on the bigger picture, it actually is somewhat similar to what I just talked about, in terms of not thinking back to the strategy of like, what are these tactics and things that we're doing actually going to get us, right? Mm-hmm. And looking at the return on it. It's very easy to just say, I'm into like productivity and kind of maximizing my time and my energy. It's very easy to like do a ton of things and be like, oh man, I was super productive today. And it's like, but it didn't actually do anything, right? And it didn't make sense within the broader context of the business. So I think a lot of young SEOs, a lot of young marketers, a lot of young digital marketers, if you've studied marketing, you kind of have that bigger picture. But if you never actually studied marketing, like I've never taken a marketing class in my life, right? And I used to be proud of that. And now I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a liability. I would have been more effective if I had, or if I went ahead and did it now. Can definitely learn a lot. But I think a lot of people, especially starting out, don't think about, why are we doing this? My first job in SEO was as a link builder for an agency in Philadelphia, working in a really competitive space. Basically, my job was buying links. Like 2010, early 2011, my job was buying links. And so we'd contact sites, offer to pay them, and once they put the link up with the anchor text we needed, we'd pay them, right? We had like set up recurring payments to these people to keep the links live. Like that was a different day, right? That was before Penguin, it was before Panda, it was before all of these things, right? And so it was like, it was a good learning experience. It was, I would say it was gray hat is what it was. I wouldn't call that black hat. Black hat's levels further, but it was definitely gray hat, right? It was definitely against their guidelines. But so I don't know that I feel bad about it necessarily. I definitely wouldn't do it again, right? I haven't bought a link since early 2011, but like it was, it definitely gave me a good education and also kind of taught me like what worked and, and what didn't. So, I think a lot of young SEOs, aren't kind of willing to do that sort of thing, and to learn that way. They listen a lot to, even people like myself, right? Like I don't know everything. I've been in the game for a while, but like I also don't have nearly as much experience as a lot of other people. I'm not as good of an SEO as a lot of other people as well. But like, don't just listen to what like I'm saying or you're saying, right? Or Rand or, whoever, you have to go and you have to test it yourself instead of just, these are the things that we're doing in order to grow clients because this is what my agency told me to do. If you actually want to become a better SEO, you need to go and test those things yourself. Build a website, write content, learn to build links, learn to get, exposure, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's so funny. This keeps, without any prompting, like this keeps coming up again and again and again of just like, you can't just think like, I'm going to read some blog posts, learn how I think SEO works, get some clients or whatever. You have to like have your own side projects. I don't know a lot of SEOs who are, granted, look, like if you own and run an SEO company, maybe you have less time for side projects, right? Like I get that. When you get higher up, you become somebody who runs a business, you're a business builder. And I get that. I still think you should be trying to, and I'm advising my betters here, so it's kind of hypocritical or kind of silly, but I still think like if you have more money than time, you can still deploy money to experiment and try projects and things. And I think there's something there, but there's nothing better than being able to tell my clients at work, like, hey, there was a Google update. Here's what we're seeing across our clients and across the industry. But they love when I could share, like, here's what I'm doing. I'm running an experiment right now on one of my own websites to try to pull it out of this or pull out of that, or here's why I think my website got like a boost after an update. And like, here's how we're going to try to deploy that on your website. Like we have all of these ideas because we're actually in the trenches. We're doers. We're not just talking.
And I like it when agencies are also going, and as we were talking about before we started recording, agencies that go and actually build their own properties, right? I know quite a few agencies that are also running their own properties. So they're creating content, they're building links, they're doing technical SEO, they're doing paid acquisition, they're doing all those things. And so, if you're willing to do it for yourself and you're successful doing it for yourself, then how much more success are you going to be doing it for clients? So I would say I know quite a few SEOs that do and digital marketers that do have their own properties. I would say more should also.
Yeah, I met a team when I was at Traffic Thinktank in Philadelphia. I met this team. There's like 4 or 5 guys, and they're like, "Well, we're an agency." I'm like, "Cool, who are your clients?" They're like, "No, we're our clients. We just buy and build our own stuff because then we don't have to report to anybody but each other." And I was just like, "Oh, I think that's a cool business model. That's interesting."
Yeah, I know agencies that they do work with external clients, but they also have their own properties, but they have people on their team dedicated to those properties.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool business.
Tell me, what about like more advanced SEOs? So people, are there any mistakes or anything you think that's coming down the pipeline, or anything you think that like more advanced SEOs are kind of missing right now, that there's either an opportunity or maybe some like common mistakes?
I think a lot of more advanced SEOs, more experienced SEOs forget what it's like to be a learner. So, it's not like an SEO specific, answer, but I think we forget that, we still have things to learn, and things are changing all the time. And there are some people that do a phenomenal job of it, keeping up with it. People like Glenn Gabe, right? Constantly sharing, new stuff that he's seeing. But there are also a lot of, it can be very easy to get kind of stuck in your ways and be like, well, this has worked for a long time, so it's going to keep on working forever, which isn't necessarily true. So once again, we need to be testing these things. We need to be testing, new strategies, new ideas, new stuff that's coming out from Google, or an algorithm change happens. What changed? How do our tactics within our strategies need to change? Do our strategies need to change, right? Because of these updates. Hopefully your strategies are, evergreen, and, they're always going to keep working. They might become a little bit less effective, so you need to tweak them. So I think that's really the biggest mistake that I see a lot of. I see myself making that mistake. Let me put it that way. I've seen other people making that mistake as well. We need to remember what it's like, to be a learner, to get in the weeds and do it. Like for example, recently I was cleaning up some of our, taxonomies and like category pages and information architecture on the Credo site. And, I've always had developers, right? When I worked in house or, work with clients, like they have developers. I'm like, we need to do, we need to eliminate these things from the database. We need to redirect them to here. We need to make sure these pages redirect like this. And they're like, all right, cool, we'll get it done, right? And then basically they come back and they're like, okay, here it is on staging. Is this right? And I basically look at it, verify it. Yep, do it. I had to learn how to write, regex to basically redirect, everything deeper, like layers deeper within these URLs to make sure they redirected to the new ones correctly, 1-to-1. And like, I was telling my colleague here this morning that like, man, I did that for about 4 hours yesterday, cleaning all of that up. I've been working on it for a couple of weeks, and like my brain is exhausted today, but I learned so much, right? It was really fun to go back and be working hard, asking people for, for advice and for answers and helping troubleshoot stuff, people smarter than me. And it was really, really cool. So I think we need to remember, to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, especially just because kind of like how we kick things off. There's so many things that affect search, right? There's 200 ranking factors. And really, if we think, what are those ranking factors? They're really just 200 things that make the internet better for humans. And there's a lot of ways to make the internet better for humans. I can say from personal experience recently, one thing that I've gotten really frustrated with in myself was like, I've always been a content and links guy. So it would be like, John, imagine like we got into an argument and I just kept yelling the same, no matter what you said, I would just yell the same thing back at you. Like no matter what our client, yeah, but just copy and paste. Like no matter what our clients' problems were, I was like, better content, better topic clusters, more links. And then eventually you're like, you start to see, and they had great results, don't get me wrong, but I was just like, wait, like I'm not doing anything with structured data. That seems like that's a misstep. I'm not doing, like, I'm missing, there's all these other like nuances and different things that I just was starting to realize that I was becoming very one-dimensional, and that eventually when content and links don't help, what am I going to do? How am I going to help?
Right. Well, the interesting thing there, Brendan, is that you're not wrong either, right? Like most websites do need better content. They do need better topic clusters, topical authority. They do need more and better links, right? From sites that make sense. They need all of that stuff. So if a site doesn't have any of that, like going and talking about structured data and those sorts of things, you have to set the base before you can really build from there, right? If you don't pour a foundation before you build a house, like that house isn't gonna, be nearly as secure as one where you did pour a foundation. I say this as someone who owns an 1895 house that didn't have a concrete foundation poured, but that's how they did it back in the day, but it lends itself to other challenges. So, but if you go and you're like, okay, let's put on a new roof, but like all your walls are cracked, it's not going to do you any good. So like fix the walls, fix your foundation, and then build from there. So I actually think of it as a, instead of like, these are the 3 things that I do. It's not an either or, like either you do this or you do this. It's a both and sort of thing. It's like, we have to do this. Once again, it's that strategy of we start here, then we do this, and then you build into those things, structured data, that sort of stuff. Something else I see is that people will kind of take different types of websites and try to apply the same strategies to them. So strategies you employ on a B2B SaaS website are going to be very different that you employ on a million-plus page e-commerce website, B2C e-commerce website. So I think we also need to be open to the fact that, like, these strategies are going to change how we kind of chain together what we're implementing, how we do SEO, how we create content, how that works in with the information architecture, all that stuff. It changes based on the type of site as well. And we can't forget that as SEOs.
Yeah, definitely agree. Talk to me really quickly as we're kind of wrapping up. You mentioned Credo. Talk to me more about Credo.
Yeah, so Credo is a company that I started working full-time on about 3.5 years ago. I actually started it January, February 2013. So it's been 6 years now. And it was a side project. Basically, I started it to help companies that are looking to hire SEO and digital marketing companies, help them hire the right ones for their business. So, and there's a few parts to that. One is that they don't hire people that don't have the qualifications that, aren't going to be able to get them results. Some people are really good at, selling the dream, but not actually good at getting the results. The second one is helping the good agencies and consultants, helping them get more work, right? Better clients, better paying clients, that sort of stuff. But then also helping the businesses really streamline the process of finding and hiring the right provider. So to date, we've helped 2,200 plus businesses, probably around 2,300 now. And, generated tens of millions of dollars in qualified leads, and a percentage of that, a percentage of that has closed into work for the people on our platform. So, we're investing in, we're changing our vetting process. We're, working on a lot of technical upgrades, to the site and have a lot of big stuff, coming up this year, but we take a very high touch, white glove approach, to helping clients find and hire the right the right people that we vetted out, that we know do good work. We've seen a couple of their clients. We spoke with them on the phone. We kind of go through the 3 levels. It's, how good is your work? How professional are you, as a company? And then also kind of like a culture check, culture call, where we can also explain more about kind of how Credo works. So we kind of do those multiple levels, looking across not just like, we're not testing people on their like SEO knowledge or something like that, right? We're not reviewing recommendations that go to their clients, but basically all these other things that go into what makes someone, good at what they do, or what basically tells us that they're more likely to be doing good work than someone else. And then over time, as we're saying to clients, we're getting feedback from their clients. We're constantly vetting them out as they go.
Nice. That definitely, yeah. Rank, just because you can rank for number 1 for Chicago SEO expert does not mean you can actually do anything, but that's usually the qualification, right? That's usually how people start putting their lists together, is they're Googling SEO
exactly.
wherever they are.
And I actually have a blog post about, should you hire the person that ranks number 1 for their own queries? Like maybe not. Like you got to look at their links. You got to look at how they're doing it, right? If they're ranking for Chicago SEO, a local keyword, are they going to be able to drive you results for your like multinational, shoes e-commerce site? Maybe, but maybe not, right? You got to look at what's their experience and who have they worked with before and that sort of stuff. So it's also a big education process for clients, which I'm sure, you've come across as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, John. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us for 100 Days of SEO.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I hope that was super helpful for you. I really enjoyed talking to John. Again, you can check out John at getcredo.com. This episode was brought to you by Flywheel. That's where I host all of my most important WordPress websites. I think they're fantastic. I would recommend you check them out. 100daysofseo.com/Flywheel will take you there. Also, don't forget to join our 1 ranking away 30-day SEO challenge. It's all of the most important things that I know. It will completely change how you think about SEO. I've heard that from beginners and even my friends who probably know more about SEO than even I do. At the very least, it'll probably make you spit your coffee out reading it and looking at the GIFs and stuff. So you'll enjoy it. Again, that's just at 100 Days of SEO or 100daysofseo.com/subscribe. I've been Brendan Hufford. Don't forget to work hard, be nice people, and don't get too lost trying to create something that matters.